Hi y'all. Today I thought I would try and break down what makes a good fight scene and how you can be sure that your fight scene in your novel is truly epic. So fight scenes can be incredibly powerful tools in storytelling. They're meant to be an emotional high point of the story, but there are certain things that a fight scene has to do in order to convey the right information and in order to really connect with your reader in a way that will satisfy them for what they're expecting in a fight scene. So as much as some of us would like to simply stay at home and talk to cameras all day, turns out we're social critters. And human beings, when they look at a fight, they see something interesting, not because of the fight itself. And this is what's important to understand when you're trying to write a fight scene in a way that is part of your storytelling. The fight itself does not matter. Humans evolved to be part of a tribal community. Our brains are designed to keep track of hundreds of different relationships, not only our relationships with other people, but other people's relationships with each other, because those relationships affect us. So when there's a big upheaval or there's some sort of societal change or cultural change that's going to happen, like say in a fight, this is something our brains automatically tell us to be interested in, because the results of that fight and what that fight tells us about the dynamics going on between the individuals involved will affect us and our survivability. We do live in a global culture now, in a global society, but our hind lizard brains haven't figured that out yet. It still expects us to be living in a tribal environment. So, Jane see fight. Jane pay attention. Tarzan! Tarzan! Coffee! As a storyteller, it is your job to hijack this little quirk of brain chemistry and use it to your best advantage. So how do you do that? Well, first you need to understand that the blow-by-blows and the gore and all of the missing body parts and all of that stuff is just window dressing. It's not what we're actually interested in. It's something to keep your readers in suspense, but it's not something we're actually interested in. Once you understand the fundamentals of what a fight scene is and what it can be, you can be sure to deliver upon some truly epic scenes that your reader will be thinking about long after they've put down your book. There are 3 things that a fight can give us information about. It can tell us something about the characters who are fighting. It can tell us something about the world we're watching. Or it can change the social hierarchy. However, you can have a fight scene without any of these things being present. So for instance, in many superhero or action movies, the writers do not want to weaken either of the 2 main characters, and so you end up with a big physical conflict and no resolution, no change to the social hierarchy, and we don't learn anything new about the characters or the world they live in. If you're talking about a serialized movie, generally the first movie's fights will be pretty awesome because we're learning new things about the characters as we go. But as we get to the second, third, and later movies, we've already seen all of this and there's no new information being provided. So in the original Matrix movie, each fight scene introduced new concepts and changing situations that inform the watcher about the world the story was based in or the abilities of the characters they were looking at. But by the second and third, the moviegoers already had all this information, and the fight scenes fell flat despite being far more costly to produce. They might look cooler, but they simply did not provide the same emotional impact as the ones in the first movie did. We end up looking at something that looks like something we're interested in, but in reality is nothing but window dressing. This is the thing that you as a writer want to avoid at all costs. Do not just give your reader window dressing. Give them substance. Give them something that they actually care about, not just something that looks like something they care about. So another thing that a good fight scene must do is that it must fit within the plot of your story. Just like any other scene you write, the fight scene needs to move the plot along. It needs to have a structural function. A truly epic fight scene also needs to keep the reader in suspense about what is going to happen next. The biggest army, the most awesome superpower, the greatest bomb isn't gonna mean a thing or have any sort of emotional impact if the reader doesn't feel that it will affect anyone they care about. Make your characters too powerful or too invincible, and none of the blows are gonna do any harm. If the blows don't seem to do anything because your hero or your villain is too strong, then why should your readers care about the fight? Therefore, a good fight scene must not only do at least one of the three things we've previously talked about, but it must also have a sense of real threat and vulnerability, utilize changes, have a victory and or a defeat, and it must advance the plot of the story in some way. So let's look at both a good and bad example of this. A truly great example of a fight scene which incorporates all 7 of these elements is from the epic sword fight scene in The Princess Bride. Next time you're watching this, pay attention to the actual blow-by-blow swordplay involved here. None of these actors had any swordplay training. They're phoning it in. None of these blows mean anything. No one cares about the blow-by-blow. Also keep in mind that this was not an expensive or overly complicated scene, but it is exceptionally well done. I'm going to contrast this well done and low budget fight scene with the most high budget cinematic fight scene known to date from The Matrix Reloaded, a 17-minute monstrosity that we all snored through. So let's break this down Barney style. We learn about both Wesley and Inigo. When Inigo fulfills his promise to throw the rope down and let Wesley reach the top of the cliff alive, we learn that honor is very important to Inigo and that Wesley is willing to take great risks to fulfill his goals. We learn about their preferred fighting styles and about how much study their skills took to master. We don't learn anything about either Neo or Agent Smith. By the time this fight rolls around, we've already seen all these talents and abilities they display. We learn nothing new about either character's motivations or anything new about what is important to them. The fight doesn't physically or mentally challenge either one of the characters sufficiently enough for us to glean anything about their level of conviction. There is no animosity between these two characters. The whole fight is treated as a business necessity. If anything, we get the feeling they enjoy each other's company. They converse politely and learn about each other's backgrounds. But we get the impression that they have both fought and killed many times throughout their lives with very little emotional investment. This is the world they live in. Again, we've already seen all of this before. We already knew that these two characters can bend the laws of physics while in the Matrix and not get injured. We already knew Smith could duplicate himself. We don't get any new information. Inigo was widely accepted as one of the greatest swordsmen in the world, up until he was defeated by Wesley. There are many points in the fight where one character or the other could easily win. A sword is dropped or set down and the other is defenseless. Neither goes for the kill in these situations, and in fact, they politely wait for the other to retrieve their weapon, because they really are enjoying the simple pleasure of a worthy opponent. They're showing off to each other. They're posturing. Even more than a clear defeat based on a lucky moment could reestablish the hierarchy here, they want to figure out the pecking order based on skill and ability, and they do. After this fight, the two characters' dynamic changes drastically and they earn a level of respect for each other. Nothing fundamentally changes in the relationship between Neo and Smith in this scene. Neo is informed by Smith that there is some link between them, but Neo doesn't seem to fully appreciate what this connection is until the end of the movie. So, while the seed for a future change is planted here, the actual dynamics between these two characters does not change after this fight. Both men are fully prepared to kill each other, and both have the ability to cause serious harm or death in this fight. The suspense of what will happen, the tension of the unknown, is palpable. We already know that neither character can actually be hurt while in the Matrix. They've both learned how to bend that rule. There is a short period where we do fear for Neo's safety, but that is quickly moved past. This box gets checked, but just barely. After an initial testing each other out stage, Inigo reveals that he is not left-handed, switches hands, and immediately gains the upper hand in the fight. Sometime later, just as Inigo is about to defeat him, Wesley reveals the same advantage, switches hands, and begins to defeat Inigo. For the most part, this entire 17-minute sequence is pure window dressing. The main emotional height of the fight is when Smith tries to turn Neo, but fails. Again, this box gets checked, but barely. Wesley is the clear victor. He chooses not to kill Inigo as a professional courtesy, but he could have, and Inigo knows it. Neo does his Superman thing and abandons the fight. There is no clear winner and no clear loser. The entire thing feels anticlimactic. This fight is the first of 3 confrontations Wesley must have before he can get Buttercup away from her captors and hope to save her. From a classic storytelling structural viewpoint, this scene fits into the 6th step of the hero's journey, Trials, Allies, and Enemies, where the hero must face a series of challenges to achieve his goal. For a more thorough breakdown on the hero's journey, see my video here. As best as I can tell, removing this entire scene wouldn't change the movie much at all. It serves no function in the overall plot and does nothing to move it along. The only thing this scene does, structurally, is to catch up Neo on what the viewers already knew and to plant the idea that the 2 characters are somehow linked. However, that bit about them being linked wasn't part of the fight scene. It was simply stated by Smith to Neo before the fight started, and then we get 17 minutes of money flying out the window. If we can learn anything from this fight scene, it's that more in a fight scene isn't always better. Sometimes it's just more. So there you have it, the fundamentals of writing a good fight scene. Next time you're trying to write one, aim for at least one of the first 3 items on this list and for all of the others to be checked off. If you want to write a truly epic fight scene, find a way to check off all 7 items. That's all from me today. I want to give a very special thank you to Storybrain, who did a wonderful analysis of this topic and who I borrowed/plagiarized from heavily for this video. I have linked his original video in the description below. Do check it out and subscribe to him. He is amazing. Talk to me in the comments. What is your favorite fight scene, either from books or from movies? I like both. I'd love to hear from you. And until then, bye-bye. If you want to write a truly epic fight scene, find a way. If you want to write a truly epic fight scene, find a way to incorporate all 7 points and get up. If you want to write a truly epic fight scene, If you want to write a truly epic